Okay, welcome to our community office hours with Councilmember Johnny Khamis. I'm Johnny Khamis. I'm your council member for District Number 10. And as always, my staff is standing by to help us answer questions from the public. So if you have questions, please write them in the comments if you're on Facebook. And if you're on Zoom, just enter in the Q&A section. So let's start with some announcements and catch up on what's been happening at City Hall. First, the October edition of my newsletter was released this week, and it's filled with resources and the upcoming virtual events. And of course, as usual, I have my tax measure summary. It's a chart that describes all the local tax measures that are in our district and in our area and how they appear on the ballot. We're not taking sides, we're just educating the public on how it affects you. So please take a look at my newsletter. It's actually full of a lot of other things as well. Also do your research by looking at the Ballotopedia and the county registrar's office. You can visit them online at sccvote.org. Every registered voter in Santa Clara County will be receiving a vote by mail ballot. I know I've already voted and I've already turned in my ballot. I've received my ballot a few days ago. If you haven't, you should look into what's going on. I think they should already be at your front door. And there's plenty of places to mail it in, or you could drop it off at many sites. It doesn't cost anything to mail it via mail, so don't even bother with any stamps. And we also have COVID-safe in-person voting locations, and those are going to be available from now until Election Day, which is November 3rd. So if you go on sccvote.org, you could find a location near you. I'm not going to go into a lot of updates from the City Council because we have a guest that has a cutoff at 10:30, and we want to be careful with his time. But I do want to make some other announcements in regards to other things that are going on in our area. I'm especially proud of the Almaden Valley Community Association because they do have educational forums on things like ballot measures. Now they've already done one already on some of the ballot measures like 15, 16, 17, and 20. And they're doing another one on Monday, October 2nd, and it's a forum between the two state candidates that are running in our district. And that'll be at from 7 to 8 p.m. Featuring Ann Ravel and Dave Cortese. They'll also be discussing Measure S, Measure RR, and Prop 17 from 8 to 9. That last month's measure forum can be found on the Almaden Valley Community Association's Facebook page. So if you missed that, you can always, go onto their Facebook page and catch up. They had both sides of every issue. I think most of the issues, and I think that it's a very well worth your time video to watch. My office and District 10 Leadership Coalition will also be holding a forum on the opportunity housing on October 24th. So if you're interested in on what we're doing on creating housing for those who are having trouble affording to live in the Bay Area, that's a really good forum for you to log into. Also, if you're interested in starting a neighborhood association or starting or strengthening the one that you have in our district, please contact the District 10 Leadership Coalition, and you can do that by email at d10leadershipcoalition@gmail.com. That's D as in dog, the number 10, leadershipcoalition@gmail.com. Also, I wanted to update you guys, the Adopt a Park program cleanups are happening. So we used to have a ton of people doing cleanups, and it's actually getting less and less because of COVID, but these are COVID-friendly cleanups all over the county, all over our city. So send in your email to parkvolunteer@sanjoseca.gov. That's sanjoseca.gov. And we can help you find a cleanup near you. And we'd love to have people register for those. And if we're having a beautiful day cleanup and a community cleanup that's happening on October 17th and 18th. They're also taking registrations, and these are service projects that are happening all over the county, but there are two in Almaden. One is a wall painting on Coleman and Almaden Expressway along with reed removal on the median, and updating and improving the learning center at the Almaden Lake. So I'm going to be out there personally, and I'm hoping you could join me on those dates and help us beautify our beautiful community. That being said, I want to cut to our esteemed guest. We've had him on before. Victor Farley works in the Office of Economic Development for the City of San Jose, and we're delighted to have him on today with us to help us catch up on what's been happening with all the things happening to small business and what's available. And businesses have suffered a lot under COVID, especially small businesses. And let me start by welcoming Victor. Victor, let's turn on your microphone and your video if you can, please.
Sure. Good morning. Thank you, Councillor Khamis. I hope you can hear me okay. And it's an honor to be invited back to speak to you and your community. My name is Victor Farlie. I work in City Hall in the Office of Economic Development. And my kind of job really over the past 6 months with COVID is to look at the issues that impact on small business in the city.
So thank you for doing that. Really appreciate that. This is, I know that a lot of businesses are hurting.
Yes.
And, I have a few questions before we let other audience members ask some, but there's a lot of confusion on what's happening between going from red to orange, if we are truly in orange or if we're still in red, and what does this phasing do, and can restaurants open at 50% capacity, 25%? Help us cut through the confusion. What's going on?
Sure. Okay, so let's start with the obvious. We are currently in red. That's the key zone today. If you were looking to engage in any business activity in the city, you have to comply with the rules of being in that red zone. And if you want to see what those rules are in detail, I encourage every resident or business to go online and to look at the Santa Clara County COVID page, and that's SCC COVID, and that will give you the details. So I'm not going to bore everyone with just reading out stuff. I kind of want to say that we're in that moment where now today it's red, but we're preparing to go to the next stage, which is called orange. And we expect the county this coming week on October the 14th to make its next assessment. And if that assessment is good, and the indications are positive, and I'll say a bit more about that, then businesses should be, I think the key message now, the businesses should be planning ahead and preparing for orange, because orange means more opening up of businesses. So I kind of want to give you some sort of just some headlines here and 2 or 3, what I would say are obvious but practical tips, things that business owners and managers should be doing now as part of that preparation. So here are the 2 or 3 kind of headlines as we move from today's red into hopefully tomorrow's orange. Orange, as you were saying, Councillor Khamis, does mean more indoor businesses or businesses that trade indoors, like restaurants, like gyms, like salons, can begin to open up, but at a much reduced capacity. So the most obvious practical thing for me to say to a business owner is to check that you have the opportunity to open indoors safely. That means following what's called the protocol. So I think the most important thing for me to convey, Councillor Khamis, to anyone listening is to check the protocol, because every business needs to have a protocol in place. And you can go to a number of sites, but a good one to go to again is Santa Clara County to look at that protocol for safe reopening. So if I were a business owner today, that would be my homework, to check it, look at it, and then almost kind of walk around my business if I've got a restaurant or a salon and say, hey, how would I want to organize my business, my restaurant, my salon in anticipation of opening? Because I won't be able to open to 100% capacity. As you were saying, Councillor Khamis, it's going to be a much more reduced capacity, 25% to 50%, depending on the type of business that I am. So if I'm at that 25% end, that's kind of like just 1 in 4 tables. So if I only had 4 tables in my restaurant, I can, before COVID, I can only have 1 table today. Where would I put that table? What would that table look like? How big is that table? I know this might sound nuts, but kind of engage in the practical, obvious stuff that a business owner would need to do in advance. You don't want to be there on day one thinking, I should have had a plan. Get your kind of plan in your head straight now is my sort of obvious practical point. The second thing to say around moving from this so-called red into the new orange is testing. I think the one thing when I've dealt with questions from business owners and managers over the last 2 to 3 weeks is the most difficult scenario for a business owner is if a member of staff tests positive, because it can create a shutdown. So what I've said to people is test in advance. So I think the next week is a great week for business owners and managers to get their staff tested. So look online, either at San Jose or at Santa Clara County, for many of the free pop-up centers. And I was just checking before we came on live, and I see, for instance, that the San Jose Children's Museum today has a pop-up testing center. So always look online. I went and got tested this morning, for instance, at Kaiser at Skyport. So I need to be where I'm out meeting people, or I'm going into meetings or community events. I have to know that I'm safe and that my employer, the city of San Jose, can entrust me to behave in accordance with the protocol. So I get myself tested. And so I always encourage a business owner now, particularly as we move from this kind of today red into hopefully tomorrow orange, to ensure that you don't have a member of staff who's tested positive, who comes into your place of work. I'm sure many people will say, hey, that's obvious, but unless you follow through, you really do expose your business to a level of risk that, to be honest, you could have prevented. So
that is wonderful, great advice, Victor. And I know my staff put up the link to the Santa Clara County Gov website, and so that it's currently on the chat link, and we also posted it on Facebook, so that people who want to look up how to do things safely, they could do that. If they want to get tested for free, I want to let everybody know that it's free, and it they don't require you to prove that you're a citizen of San Jose or the United States or anything else. It's just there for you to get tested. Sorry. Yes. And so my next question would be, there's a lot of businesses that are struggling to make ends meet, and for a while we've had a rent moratorium on commercial rent moratorium. Where are we with that?
Great question. Thank you, Councillor Khamis. Well, there's been quite a bit of development in the last month on this issue. And what it means for all businesses and all property landlords is the following. We have a commercial rent moratorium that affects every business in the city of San Jose, as it does for now the whole of the county of Santa Clara. That moratorium from a rent eviction is in place through to November 30th, 2020. And the people who make that decision are the Board of Supervisors or at the county, Santa Clara County. And what they have been allowed to do is to take that ordinance that they've had and keep it in place to the end of November by the governor. The governor made a statement about 3 weeks ago that basically said, I've changed the law, I've approved legislation on the residential side, but I haven't approved any legislation on the commercial side. So I'm going to allow local jurisdictions to have moratoriums on rent evictions on just the commercial property. And that allowed Santa Clara County to implement their decision. The governor also said that local jurisdictions can come back and make more decisions and can extend, if they want to, a moratorium through to the end of March 2021. So what we will see is that the Board of Supervisors, probably towards the end of November, when they have their regular board meeting, they will probably make another decision whether to extend. And just to say two things on the moratorium that people always ask me. One is my rent being deferred or is my rent being forgiven? Is what I'm always asked by a tenant. And the answer is, it's only being deferred, not forgiven. So a tenant must understand that once that moratorium ends, they still owe the rent. And under the rules of the ordinance, the really important thing here is that 50% of the rent due must be paid within 6 months of the moratorium ended. So just to give you a quick example, if the moratorium ended at the end of November this year, 50% of that rent must be paid by the end of May 2021. And then the balancing 50% must be paid up by the end of November 2021. So it does give the tenant a good period of time, that first 6 months and then that second 6 months, to ensure that they've paid the rent. Now, if you said to me who feels happy and who feels unhappy about that arrangement, I would say on the whole, tenants feel more happy than landlords, because landlords are having to wait. And so many small landlords, if you're a landlord listening to this and you may have 1 or 2 properties and that's your livelihood, you need to ensure that you've got a good relationship with your tenant, because you are going to have to wait for your rent. So there's a balancing act here between the interests of the tenant and the interests of the landlord. And I was doing some numbers, Councillor Khamis, and I think we've got just under 27,000 commercial tenants in the city of San Jose who are protected from rent eviction. So it's a very important measure, which I know you have spoken on in the past when it came to City Council, and it ensures that we protect our small business base. But businesses must understand, that business must understand they will still owe the rent.
Yeah, well, I think I've heard a lot of businesses actually renegotiate their leases with
Yes.
owners, and I think a lot of owners they would rather see renegotiation than their tenant going bankrupt, and my hat's off to those owners who are helping the small businesses stay alive for now. Well, speaking of helping small businesses, give us I've heard of a lot of new programs that are, big loans that are being offered to small businesses in the county and from the state. So and from private companies like Facebook or something. There's a lot of these programs coming up. Can you give us any latest news on what's available for small businesses? What small businesses can do to get some of these loans?
Of course, yes. I've got some exciting news that I wanted to share with you this morning, Councillor Khamis, and particularly for the small business community. There's been a lot of discussion in the last few weeks, again, between the governor and local jurisdictions about how to support small business with a loan program. And I'm very pleased to give you, probably that you're the first person I'm talking to about this, that we've got an event organized for next Tuesday, October the 13th at 5 p.m. with a number of organizations to give every small business in the city of San Jose the heads up that there's going to be a brand new loan fund that the state is going to support, and it's going to be organized through a number of local financial institutions that are approved at federal and state level, like banks, and they will be able to offer this loan program. And it's designed for businesses that employ 50 people or less. So that's a good chunk of businesses. I would say that's probably 90% of our businesses in the city employ 50 people or less. It's going to be offering loans of up to $100,000. And if we look at the kind of federal stimulus programs in the summer, when I did some analysis, about 75% of all loans were actually under $150,000. So again, there's a good chunk of small businesses for whom this could be of interest. And then the final point is that the interest rates are going to be low. And I think that makes it competitive. And it's going to be, they're going to design, and I haven't yet seen it, otherwise I would give you the link, an online portal. So any business owner only has to apply once through the online portal, which is free. There is no fee for doing it. And then that portal will act as the sort of host of your information. And that will then go to the bank that will then make a decision on the application. And I kind of like that model because it gives you a level of kind of efficiency to it. It doesn't get lost in someone's big institution. You know you're in the system and you can check up on it. And I think this could be a really interesting one for small business. So I'm going to be out there in the next week producing as much information as I can and responding to as many questions or emails on this question of the new California. It's called the California Rebuilding Fund, and it's there to rebuild the loan capital of small business. They've got about $100 million. So it's a good chunky sum of money. And if we assume the max loan is $100,000, I think that gives a good opportunity for businesses to get in first. You can imagine, my guess is once people get to know, there'll be a bit of a race for this one. And I think people will go for it. So I want to make sure that small businesses in San Jose understand it and they can get to the head of the line and they can get their applications in efficiently. The one thing I've really learned looking at all these funds over the last 6 months is people have a much better chance of being successful if they work with a CPA. If they have a financial advisor that understands a cash flow or a tax return or a balance sheet, that really, really gets you through some of the more technical stuff that sits within an application process. So I've always said to people, even though people, sometimes a business owner can be fearful of working with a CPA, if you are, then work with someone who understands your numbers. Because at the end of the day, it's about the numbers you put on an application form that often makes the difference between success and failure.
Well,
Thank you.
That's good advice. Good advice. I have my staff actually put up the link for the county website on the moratoriums. Do you have any links that we could share on this loan program that do you have any links that we could share with the public?
Yes, indeed I do. I will forward that to your office as soon as I come off this Facebook Live.
Okay.
And it's not a complete picture. It's just the advertisement of this is where to go. And right. I think the really interesting thing on the site is a business owner can register so that when they're ready with the fund, you're going to get an email first. And that's why I want to kind of drive people to look at it so that if they're interested, they can sign up to know that they're not going to get forgotten.
Good. Is it already on the city's website in the economic development area or no?
It isn't. It's so new.
So new. All right.
You're the first.
Okay. All right. Well, breaking news here.
So it's a federal holiday on Monday. So
okay.
So Tuesday morning, I have to get the script ready for approval internally.
Is it through iBank by any chance?
It is. Yes.
Okay. Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah. So they're the underwriters. They're kind of the sort of people holding the money in the background.
Very good.
And then there'll be a list of banks, in a sense. There'll be the names you see in the foreground, but that will be responsible for your application. And then the portal will be the way in which you apply.
Excellent. Excellent. I don't know if you have time for any more questions
Yes,
from the public,
absolutely.
but let me see if my staff has anybody on the line wanting to ask questions from our special guest, Victor, here from our Office of Economic Development. Again, you can post your questions in the Zoom under Q&A or on Facebook under comments or concerns. We're taking questions right now. I think Adrian from my office and Amal may have any questions. I can't monitor them myself. So
we have a question here. It's a question for Victor.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any new or remaining help to get our businesses through winter when they may not be able to do as much outdoor activity? The financial help.
I think the short answer, and I want to be honest, is no, not at this point. I think it depends what type of business you've got. So if you're a restaurant that has, for instance, reopened outdoors through the alfresco policy, but with winter and the rain, that's going to restrict your outdoor seating and you're going to be reliant on indoor, then you're going to be I think you're going to have to talk to whoever bank you work with or a financial lender. What I'm looking at the moment is to kind of produce some information for people based on how much you need as working capital. If you're looking for under $25,000, under $50,000, or over $100,000, where to go and what to do. There will be more grant programs coming out. So as soon as the city knows of a new one that is available, we will promote that. And I will ensure that with Councillor Khamis's office, they are made aware of that information. But I think your question is a really difficult one to answer in detail, because I don't think we have anything specifically that's available for businesses in this winter period.
Well, my hope is that if we get to orange, that the county will actually follow the state's guidelines and go to the 50%, which is for restaurants and what have you. Some of the higher risk industries are they're being reduced by the county to 25%, which is a big step in the right direction. However, it doesn't follow the state's guidelines. And, my office has been advocating for small businesses like restaurants and gym to actually just follow the state's guidelines and allow businesses to open up indoors, because, for me, there's not a dollar amount that the government can give or loan that will keep businesses afloat for much longer. I think there's been, and these are all loans. They have to be paid back. So
yes.
I think the only way to get people back to work, back on the right track of profitability, or heck, just making their, surviving, is to allow them to open as fully as possible. Yes. And I want to tell everybody in the audience, please shop local. Don't as much as Amazon is convenient, I wish you would go to Oak Ridge Mall and look at Macy's, and the brick and mortar companies are really hurting. So please do shop local. And so it looks like we do have a link now for iBank.
Yes, you do.
On that, and so we put that up. Any more questions from the audience?
Yes, we have a question for Victor again. What else has been working for the Office of Economic Development, and how do businesses reach out to OED?
Great question. Thank you very much. As you can imagine, a lot of businesses contact the city, and it kind of falls into, I'd say, three big areas that people want to ask questions on. A lot of those questions have come up this morning. So one is around the rules around COVID and reopening. A lot of businesses want to understand those rules. And so a lot of what OED does is either refer people to a specialist or to a particular website like the Santa Clara County, which I think is the place you need to understand if you're a business owner. If you want to get regular information on San Jose economy, we always say just have a quick look at SJ Economy, which is the San Jose City main outlet online for economic news. People like that. They like to see what's happening. And the other thing, obviously, within that is loans, banks, and lending, as I've mentioned already this morning. I just want to have a small point. The Federal Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program is still open. So business owners can still make an application, and the loan repayment is 30 years, up to 30 years. So it's a really good, very competitive interest rate, long-term repayment. So it's a very stable way to refinance the working capital of your business. So I always encourage a business owner to have a quick look at the information, and the best information on that program is actually on the federal government website, sba.gov, really good. And they've really smartened up the application process. So they've slimmed it down. And again, if you've got a financial advisor or a CPA, I'm sorry to repeat that one, but if there's two people looking at an application form, you can get through it a lot quicker than one person on your own if you're not familiar with these sorts of government type information websites. So have a look at that. That's a really good one. And I know that the SBA has really got to grips with the kind of numbers of people applying, and they've got the turnaround time really down now. So that's another one to have a quick look at. It doesn't suit everyone, but I do try and advise people always to have a look at it on the money side. And then the last one is the property side, because we've got so many business tenants in the city. As Councillor Khamis, you were saying, now is the time to have a negotiation or conversation between the landlord and the tenant. However difficult the question might be today, it's a bigger problem tomorrow. So I've always said to people, if I can encourage you to talk either to an agent or a broker, I'll make a recommendation, or I can advise you to look at a particular website. Or I've said to people, go and talk to one of our free business support organizations that specialize in legal advice. And a good one, just to give them a free plug, if I may, this morning, Santa Clara University have a free legal clinic for small business. And they brought in someone in that clinic to look at property issues. So I'm very keen that when people call me and say, hey, I don't have any money, can you help me? I try and give them a referral like Santa Clara University. And I can give you again, your office, the link. You can make a free appointment through them and have a Zoom call one-to-one with the university's free legal clinic. And I'm kind of talking to the university about all sorts of different projects in how we can kind of bring more direct support to small business in the city. So just as a sort of way of trying to invite myself back at some future point, Councillor Khamis, when I've got something on that, I'll be delighted to share that with your office.
Yeah, you're always welcome here. Thank you. I am the, if people don't know, I'm the head of the Economic Development Committee for the city of San Jose, and these issues are near and dear to me. I mean, I feel, I have to say, as a small business owner, I used to be a small business owner for many, many years, and I still kind of run a small little business on the side. You know, I'd rather have customers than loans. And I think that's most of the businesses out there feel that way. And the sooner that the county allows people to come back safely. Now, I want to be clear. I want people to open up their businesses safely. And I think it behooves the county to look for safer ways for us to start coming indoors. As many people have said to me, I mean, I've gotten so many phone calls about, hey, you know, what's going to happen when it starts to rain? I can't do al fresco anymore. And they had lots of trouble when we had the smoke raining down ashes. You know, last week, it was very tough. My office received a lot of phone calls, and I think in the long run, I think it's really important for the county to actually give us, you know, what should we do to operate safely? Have a HIPAA filter, you know, with barriers. I think it's in the best interest of the county as well. It's in the best interest of government to help us reopen safely, because guess what? Government actually relies on business taxes to come in. We are dependent on those revenues coming in from businesses to pay for things, you know, like police officers and pavement and parks and libraries. And those are the things that, you know, all of the residents depend on. So it behooves us to work faster and allow businesses to get going sooner. Any more questions from the public? And I don't know if I'm pushing you too far here. Do you have to be off?
In a few minutes, but I'd be delighted to quickly answer any final questions.
All right, any left?
Yeah, we do have a question from the audience, and the question asks, are businesses leaving San Jose? If so, is it just COVID related, or are there other policy related issues?
Oh, great question. Businesses are leaving and coming. So overall, are we losing businesses? No. The impact of COVID shakes all that up. But overall, no, the business community, we have actually a record number of businesses registered on our business tax license system in the city of San Jose. So I think from the point of view of business overall, people are really pleased. And if you look at some of the employment changes over the past 6 months since COVID, you'll see that in some industries like construction, almost back at 100%. So I think fundamentally the San Jose economy is strong. And the important thing is we preserve and protect and support as many of our small businesses as we can in the city as we transition, hopefully, as Councillor Khamis was saying, safely over the next 6 months. I think the main area of concern and stress is hospitality, restaurants, and small general retail that we identify in our neighborhoods. That's where we have to really put our energy.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Victor. I know you got to
Pleasure.
run, and thank you for always joining us. You're always full of great information. Have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon again.
You too, sir. Thank you very
Yeah.
much for the invitation. Thank you.
Okay, have a great day. And now we'll open it up to questions to my office and myself. If you have questions, please let us know. Let's see if anybody from the public has posted any questions on our Facebook or on Zoom. Anything from our public for the council member?
We do have a question from the public. The question is asking that you are going to be leaving office in a few months, and they want to know, what are your priorities to close off your term?
Well, you know, I've always been interested in housing, and one of my big pushes will be a way to buy housing. I've been, you know, kind of preaching this for years. It's much faster and cheaper to buy instead of build, and it actually stimulates the economy because a lot of the older units and some of even the newer units can go off the market, and developers will be more encouraged to build. So we've looked at a way where business and government have come together, and you'll be hearing a lot more about that. That's one of my big priorities, to help solve the housing problems that we have here in San Jose, and quite frankly, all over California. This is it's a business and government partnership to buy and create housing, low-income housing, workforce housing, in fact, which is one of our biggest problems. So I'll be working on that. That's going to be my top priority. And then, of course, making sure all the things that I've tried to work on in my district follow through. I have a lot of park issues that in our district that I've been working on, you know, for several years, you know, making sure we had a covered patio for the Almaden Community Center, making sure that the Sycamore Grove turns into an extension of the park, you know, of Almaden Lake, making sure I've been asking for ping pong tables, you know, those big concrete ones, to be at a couple of our parks. I've asked for Waterford and other parks, and I'm hoping that many of these little projects that there's a lot of little projects that I want to kind of tie up the loose ends and make sure that that we do that, and making sure that our future leader, Matt Mahan, has an easy transition. I've already been working with him, my staff, to make sure he understands everything that we're working on in the district. You know, some of our longer term projects he's going to have to pick up on. Like, you know, I've been working on a trail that connects Los Alamitos Creek Trail, you know, the one by Almaden Lake, and it dead ends kind of near Oak Ridge Mall. I want that trail to go all the way through to downtown. And so there's a 5-mile segment that I've been working on for years, and I think it's going to take a few more years because we have to work in cooperation with the water district. Because it's all on water district property. So and then preserving the old winery building. These are things that I've been working on with Matt already, so he can pick up the ball and hopefully make those things reality in the future. You know, so there's a lot of little projects. Pretty soon we're going to have a memorial statue for Pat Dando, one of my predecessors, coming into the Almaden Community Center. So lots of little tiny projects, but the big project that's going to take a lot of my focus is making sure that we can get a business government partnerships to buy housing for workforce housing, so that, you know, teachers and you know, people who make a limited income can actually work for a living here in San Jose, and they'll have an opportunity to do so. And so those are the things that are most important to me in my next few months. And I will, in my last, I think in the last couple of newsletters, I'll probably include a little segment that if anybody wants to keep in touch with me, I'll give them my private email account. And it's basically johnny@johnnycamis.com. And if you ever want to keep in touch with me, that's how you can do it. And of course, those of you on Facebook already know how to reach me, because I get texts in the middle of the night sometimes. So I've loved serving this community, and it's been such an honor to serve all of you. Any more questions, Adrian?
But yeah, we have another question from the public, and the question is asking for an update on the homeless encampments on 85 and Albion Expressway.
Well, we've been working with our homeless task force team at the city. That is, as I've said, Caltrans property. Now they've gone out there to clean up the property, but they are not removing the homeless individuals because of the CDC request not to move homeless encampments. So I think, they used to tell me it was a law. It is not a law. We can actually move these folks. And I think a lot of municipal organizations are using these guidelines as a way to not move the encampments at all. But I have been stressing that some of them need to move, especially the ones that are blocking trails. For example, on Highway 87 near Gunderson High School, I've been adamant that we move some of these along the trail, because they're blocking people from traversing on our trails and parks. So more to come on that, but please be vocal to Caltrans to help us with making sure our area is clean. Now they did tell me they cleaned it up a couple of times. I saw it a little cleaner, but it didn't look much cleaner. And so we are hosting cleanups coming up in some areas, but not that area, because that area requires us to cooperate with Caltrans, and a little more difficult. But we're going to do our best to address those issues. But we need the help of our state. So please contact your Senator Bell's office, or your state assembly members. Now we have 3 assembly members that represent my district. One of them is Ash Kalra, who represents the northern part of my district. One of them is Evan Lowe, that represents the north, the west, and Mr. Stone, Mark Stone, that represents the southeast portion of our district. So we have 3 assembly members. Please make your voices heard. Contact all of them, because I'm as tired of seeing, the filthy on-ramps, off-ramps, and quite frankly, the highways as well. So please make your voices heard. We're going to be spending $3 million in the next few months cleaning up city-owned property, and more to come on that. We've already we're already working on some of the areas in the city, like on Branham near Monterey Highway has already been cleaned up, where I've been asking for that one. So we've been the squeaky wheel, but we want you to be the squeaky wheel with us. So more to come, but pay attention to my newsletter. We are doing more on trash than most offices are. Next question, Adrian, if we have any.
Yes, we do have a question. This one is from Sonia, and she wants to know, since council and other subcommittees are meeting via Zoom now, how does the public participate during the public comment portion?
Well, it's much like you're participating now, Sonia, except for, and maybe we can allow Sonia to speak, but we at City Hall, we could put a link, and maybe Shane or somebody else can put a link to this next City Council meeting, and you could log in, and then you can raise your hand, and this at the City Council, and the mayor will call on you. In fact, more people are commenting on public comments now that we're on Zoom than we've ever had before. In fact, some of the meetings are lasting till midnight because public comments have gone viral, so a lot of people are participating. And if you want to participate, my office will put up a link on how to do so right now, hopefully.
And she had a follow-up question about if she has a presentation, who does she contact in advance to make sure it is included?
Well, you got to make sure your presentation is 2 minutes or less, but you can contact my office and we can link you up with the city clerk's office. The city clerk's office is the one that makes sure that your presentation will be up and running at the time where you're called on.
Great, thank you. Amel, do we have any more questions from the public?
No, I think we've covered it all. We just had our office hours on Wednesday as well, so we were able to address a lot of questions, and a lot of the information came out in the newsletter. So just a reminder to check out the newsletter. It's out now. I don't know if you have any more announcements you'd like to make, Councilmember. Maybe your
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we've had a great meeting, and I have to tell you, being a person who likes to meet with other people, this has been as difficult for me as it has for many of you. I love meeting people in person, and I used to love our Saturday morning coffee meetings with all of you, where I got to sit face to face with Boy Scouts and citizens who had concerns about everything. And I want you to know that my office is still here to serve all of you. We still answer our phone calls. We still answer our emails. We do our best to get answers for you and services for you to handle. We've been handling a lot more emails on garbage and street light outages and a lot more. So we are working for you. We're working hard for you. And thank you for joining us today. We will continue to do at least 2 meetings a month, so that you can have your voice heard, at least with my office. And we're going to try to continue having guests on every one of these meetings. But as my team said, check out our newsletter. It's chock full with information, including our tax chart, which we're very proud of to submit every election cycle. And that being said, you can also visit us on sjd10.com, and you can look at our last newsletter and any other ones in the archive. Thank you again for joining us. Have a wonderful day.